Hey guys, I have a quick question for you. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? If so, well, you might want to consider Anchor. So when Jesse and I first started doing this, we had a lot of questions. We had no idea what we were doing. How do we record an episode? How do we even get it out there to people? And truth be told, Anchor, which is the app we use to record this, made all of this incredibly simple. We are both what you could call technologically challenged, and we can use this with simplicity. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast, just go to anchor.fm/start. You can make a profile, and honestly, you can start recording probably within 5 minutes. Hit an upload button, and it automatically adds it to all these platforms that you listen to us on. So again, that's anchor.fm/start, and you can get started right away.
Intro, man.
Hype man.
I think eventually we need to, are we going?
We're rolling.
Oh, sorry. What's up, guys? We're back. We're back with the Fitness Experiment podcast, and we're pumped because this week we have our first guest, and we even have an audience.
Whoa.
So yeah, no, we're pumped about this one. I think a lot of you guys maybe have already figured out who we have. We have Lacey Truelove. Those of you not from West London CrossFit, don't worry, we'll fill you in. We'll give you a little introduction, but we're super excited for today because we're going to talk about Functional Fitness World Championships. We're going to talk about, we'll get a little bit of a history of Lacey's background competing as an individual athlete, which I think for a lot of people will be kind of very interesting, refreshing perspective. Being a team athlete, like personally, I don't know anything about individual competition, so I'm excited to hear this. I'll stop talking for now, though. Jesse's here still. How you doing,
Hey,
Jesse?
I'm still here, yeah. I'm good. Yeah, let's start with Lace.
Okay.
Yeah,
Lace,
quick little intro.
Yeah, what do you do right now?
What
Who
do
are
I
you?
do?
Yeah.
I work at West London CrossFit. I am a CrossFit coach, strength and conditioning coach, person of the people. I like to think of myself. I'm there for the people. It's awesome. It's a great job. I don't really see it as a job. It is a passion. So I get to go to work every day and hang out with people, socialize, make them better, give them perspective. So that's what I do every day.
Sweet.
It's my day job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rain
Dog mom
again.
by night.
Dog mom. 2 little guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are their names?
Benny and Otis. Little
Odie.
babies.
Yeah. Dogs.
So can you just give us like kind of a quick background for those that aren't from West London CrossFit? Very quick recap on, I guess, how you got into CrossFit in the first place. So like just a little bit of what your experience was with diving before CrossFit.
Okay. It's a long story. So doing it in like a short form is going to be interesting.
Let's go long form.
Okay, let's go long form. So prior to diving, I look at it as I've led 3 lives. And actually, it's always very weird to me when my lives come together. So we'll start with my first one in gymnastics. That started when I was 3. So that started in Strathroy, and it was actually like dance class. And then I was a 3-year-old me looking at other kids who were doing gymnastics, and I knew that was exactly what I wanted to do. So transitioned out of Irish dance into gymnastics at 3. Well, my mom kind of put me in it. But did that, became competitive at 6. I was 6 years old.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was training 20 hours a week. So it was like, that age, it's like a full-time job. So I was doing that until I was 15. 15 transitioned into diving. And again, still doing it like a full-time job. Made like a direct transition from high-level gymnastics into even higher level diving. It was a natural transition from one sport to the next. So I went from competing one weekend, then into diving, right into national level. And then it was just like, this is a sport that feels natural. So just rolled with it. Did that until I was, I want to say 23. 2013, I retired. So through that whole process, there was FISU Games, which is like a university world championships. There was junior nationals, there was provincials, there was senior nationals, there was Olympic trials twice. And like a bunch of international competitions along the way. I guess that was shorter than I thought it was. So then I retired from diving. There's like a lot of diving stories. University of Houston, competed there for NCAA Division I. That was like another life that we could dive into. But 2011 or 2013, I retired, and then I went into CrossFit in Houston. CrossFit Edo was my very first gym, and that was my on-ramp. So I did like a full-term on-ramp, and my mind exploded, and it was like this community of people that I got to be a part of that was bigger than just me on my own, which was gymnastics and diving. So participating in something like that was crazy awesome. And I still got to compete, but not at the level that I thought I was going to be at in the sport until we fast forward years later. And then I was at that level again. But if we rewind back to my on-ramp, it was like a huge experience. Moved home in 2013 and then found West London CrossFit. Met Callan Aldred, who was the previous coach at West London. And it was like, this guy is brilliant. I trusted him. I trusted his programming. I trusted everything about it. And the community was phenomenal. So it was a super easy transition into West London and the sport of CrossFit.
Right on. Do you have a coach from gymnastics that you remember?
Yeah, I have multiple. I have Kim Bennett, who was one of my very first coaches, and we called her the Dragon Lady.
Is that the one that was at your wedding?
No, that's Jane. She's diving.
We'll get to Jane.
Oh, we'll get to Jane.
All right.
Kim Bennett, she was intimidating to say the least. Like in gymnastics, competitive gymnastics, it was like, this is how things are done. If you don't want to do it, there's the door. It was like super perfectionist. We were a very good gym. She was awesome. She was terrifying, but awesome. And then I had another coach. His name was Rod Hounsall. I think he still coaches gymnastics, might be out in Toronto. He was hilarious. He was like the passion and the love for the sport. So we got on really, really well. Those are two memorable coaches that were both super technical and passionate about what they did.
Cool.
So my first thought, like at the start of that story, was, so yeah, I started competing as an individual when I was 6 years old. And I'm like, what? Like, I can't even imagine what that would be like coming from like a background in team sports. I would imagine that was just like an insane experience, like nerve-wracking, but
it's funny. Like, it's funny to hear that it's nerve-wracking, because at that age, that's all that I knew. I didn't know team sport, right? So I didn't know how to rely on anybody other than me. If I messed up, that was on me, right? If I didn't perform, that was my fault. So I wasn't really letting anybody but myself down. And you're 6 years old. What are you doing? You're like running around on the floor dancing. It wasn't anything crazy competitive at that point. It was competitive, but it wasn't like high level. Transitioned into that level, but at 6 years old, I was just like, I'm gonna do a thing.
Yeah, I guess maybe you wouldn't really appreciate like the stakes in it until you get a little bit older.
Yeah. Until I had something to lose, really.
Yeah.
Right? You got used to, okay, well, I'm winning these competitions. Shit, what happens when I don't win, right?
Yeah.
What happens if I start to decrease in my placing, or my results aren't as good as they were before? Now I have something to lose. At that point, it was just, this is an introduction to competing. I like the way this feels. I like pushing myself. So we'll see where it goes.
Awesome. Should we transition to World Championships, you think, before we... Or do you want to stick with this? You go.
I want to know about Jane.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Jane.
Jane is definitely somebody worth talking about. Oh God. I don't even, like, I always get nervous about talking about Jane because
she could be listening.
Well, I hope she's listening. I will let her know she should be listening. I don't want to undervalue her at any point when I talk about her, because she is, aside from my mom, the most influential person I've ever had in my life, and such a leader, and somebody who's stuck with me today, tomorrow, for the rest of my life. Somebody that I aim to be one day. And I hope that she is proud of the person that I have become along the way, because a lot of it has to do with her. But she is, or she was my diving coach at the University of Houston. So Jane is an interesting character because she's very worldly. So she was born in Zimbabwe, and I don't want to butcher this. She was born in Zimbabwe. She has a European passport, I believe. So she's also, she's British, and her dad was Portuguese. So I believe she also has Portuguese passport. So she's a little bit of she's very worldly. She dove for the University of Houston. Make sure I don't get that wrong. And she coached there, gosh, I don't know how many years, but she had Olympic champions. She coached Olympic champions and was a part of the Russian national team and is currently the head coach for the British national diving team.
Shit.
So, gosh, she's obviously, her credentials are through the roof for the sport of diving, and she continues to pursue it. But not only is she a phenomenal diving coach, as a person, she is the most passionate, genuine person you will ever meet on the planet.
Yeah, I got that impression. So she, for those listening, she gave a quick little talk at Lacey's wedding, and you could tell, I had never met her before, and you could tell just from her, I don't know, 5 to 10 minute, 15, however long it was, 20-minute speech, you could tell that she was just a super passionate individual. And I got a little fired up just from that speech, just listening to her.
I was crying my eyes out.
Let's go do some shit now. Let's go build some shit.
Yeah, she's
awesome.
She took the room over for sure.
Yeah, and
she has that personality,
Jane,
not even on purpose. It's just she's so confident.
And so positive, so positive. If you're ever down, you need Jane's phone number, because she's the lady to call, and she will boost. That's just naturally who she is as a person. She doesn't work at that. She doesn't study that. That's just who she is.
And I feel like in an individual sport, to be a successful coach, that's probably at least 50% of it.
Absolutely.
I would think.
Yeah.
Even more so.
It really, and this is kind of, it doesn't matter. You have to have the knowledge of a sport, but you have to embody the positivity that you want to give to your athletes, right? You have to genuinely care about them, not just as an athlete, but as a person, because you can't have one without the other. It doesn't balance out. Yeah. Jane flew from England to be at my wedding. She didn't have to do that, right? She still cares about me as a person, and was there to be with me on that day. So that speaks volumes to the kind of person that she is.
Yeah. The reason why I asked about your coaches from the past is because I was curious, when you were describing these people, if they were similar characteristics to what I see in you when you're coaching. And you can tell that these people have made an impact on you on the level that you're not trying to imitate them, but you're trying to display to the people that you're currently coaching the way that you felt the most fulfilled through your coaches.
Yeah.
So it's just cool to hear what an impact that those coaches have on you, and they probably don't even know.
Yeah.
Right. Unless they hear this or you're very close with Jane still, so I'm sure you tell her all the time because you guys are homies, but your first coaches, they probably have no idea. The dragon lady or whatever you call her, she has no clue.
I know.
Maybe remembers you, maybe not, right? I'm sure she's seen so many people, but it's cool that as an athlete in your journey, you kind of pick and choose. And then if you ever get into a situation when you're coaching or being of influence to anyone, whether it be with kids or your own kids, your nieces, nephews, whatever, you're trying to display those characteristics.
And those things go a long way. Even Kim Bennett, one of my first gymnastics coaches, I was so little. So to think at that young age, I'm going to be 30, I still remember the things that she had to say and the way that she treated me. So us as coaches, all of us being coaches, we know that one single interaction that we have with people could make or break your relationship with them, but also it could affect them later, years and years and years down the road. And do we realize that? Maybe yes, maybe no. So it's exactly what you said. It is pretty cool. Yeah. And I respect and I appreciate that you say that you can see those characteristics in me, because that means that honestly means the world to me, that's recognized.
Yeah, for sure it is.
It's awesome.
Seen everywhere. I think we're going to talk about the International Functional Fitness Federation, but I think what this federation can cause is that impact on a grander scale in the sport that we're most involved in right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it has that yet.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you don't have coaches that work with you through age groups and see progression on the level that's measurable for the federation to track its progress and how the federation's doing as a whole, but also making sure that we're training the coaches, the awareness that they're making impacts on 6-year-old kids when they're coaching them in this sport.
Yeah.
Not yet. Anyways, we'll get there.
Yeah.
So can you guys give us just because I myself don't know a whole lot about it. Can you just give us and the listeners a quick kind of breakdown of what the major differences are between the federation and just in terms of comparing that to CrossFit?
Sure. Okay, I can take that one. So the International Functional Fitness Federation is an international governing body for functional fitness competition. The end goal is to get functional fitness recognized by the IOC and have it as part of the Olympic Games. There's timelines, not deadlines, but there's timelines set that they want to have certain things achieved by. I'm not going to go into detail with those because I'd butcher it, but there's a plan in place to get recognized by the IOC and in hopes of getting functional fitness into the Olympics. The difference between iF3 and the International Functional Fitness Federation and CrossFit is, I'm going to call it iF3 because it's too long of a name.
Yeah.
iF3 is a nonprofit organization. It's a governing body. CrossFit is a brand. It's a business. It's a corporation that generates revenue for itself and pays employees. iF3 doesn't have that. There's volunteers, but there's no employees of iF3. It's completely volunteer based, which is crazy because there's a very small amount of people doing a lot of work to make those things happen. It's crazy. Gretchen is a G.
Yeah.
I can't believe. Yeah, it's crazy. I've only been able to meet her twice.
Who's Gretchen?
She's
the president of the iF3.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's also a lawyer. She was a lawyer for HQ, CrossFit HQ. So she has a background knowing the ins and outs of the sport. And she's just great. She was at Nationals and she was at Worlds. And really takes the time to kind of go around and check in with athletes and coaches and see what their experience is like, because that's a big thing right now, is just making the experience better, making it more professional, making it consistent is a big thing that the IOC wants to see, is consistency across the board in the tests, in the process, in the paperwork. I mean, everything has to be pretty much perfect to get it recognized. But yeah, she's a president. And then from the International Functional Fitness Federation, there are national federations. I don't know how many there are now that are registered, but I think there was 20 something countries represented at Worlds this year. And then I think there was 9 or 10 countries that sent teams of 4. And I mean, the goal for this year is to create provincial level federations. So we go international, national, provincial, and working at local club level too, which we're involved in.
He's told them.
The world.
So that's exciting.
Yeah.
What comes of this is something similar to what you see in weightlifting. So London Weightlifting Club at Hybrid, their weightlifting club, people can train under that club name and they can register for competitions that would get qualifying totals for things like provincials and nationals. And then if you get a qualifying total from nationals, you'd be able to represent your country at Worlds. So what it does is it creates a standard across all countries and all people, all individuals, all teams competing, that you have to actually hit required numbers in order to get to the next level. Whereas right now, in CrossFit, especially when now they're doing the fittest and each country gets to go to the CrossFit Games, but I won't get into my personal vendetta with that. But just using that as an example, you can't tell me that the fittest person in Madagascar, where there's 2 CrossFit affiliates, is going to be able to compete with even the top 50 athletes in the United States that train full time. Yeah. You can easily list 50 full-time CrossFit athletes that live in the United States. I've never heard of any CrossFitter from Madagascar. And I mean, it's not to put, I'm just using that as an example. That person at Madagascar should have to hit specific numbers and specific standards in order to qualify for something like the CrossFit Games. They shouldn't just be the fittest in that area and maybe be the 5,000th fittest in the world and then qualify for the greatest competition or the largest competition in the world. So what this does, it legitimizes the whole process, right? We had some Canadians competing at the international weightlifting who's he what thing, whatever you call it, that went on last weekend. You know,
where was that?
Called? World Championships.
Oh yeah. From Hybrid, there's one from Hybrid.
Yeah. That's dope.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Right. So she hit a total that qualified her for that. It's not like she could have been the fittest weightlifter in Canada, or the strongest weightlifter in Canada, but she wouldn't have qualified for world if she didn't hit numbers. Yeah, so that's what functional fitness needs, and that's what this federation is going to provide.
That's what many other sports are doing, right? It's the same for diving. Like if you don't hit your total or your standard, then your country doesn't even qualify to go to the Olympics. Like you have to qualify your country for a spot to go. So it's the same.
Yeah, like CrossFit's the same back asswards. I'm not sure.
Totally, man. They're making it up as they go.
What Greg's thinking, but anyways.
But it's also making a lot of money.
Yeah.
So
it's a money
difference there.
Generator. Yeah. It's the purpose of growing and driving a sport or a purpose of making money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right?
They seem a little confused right now.
Yeah.
But I think that's a separate topic, I suppose.
I think that confusion is only going to help something like the iF3.
Absolutely.
Because it creates consistency, and there's no chaos in it. This is just the way it goes, and this is what you have to be able to do.
Yeah. So in terms of differences in the actual movements that you're doing, the lifting that you're doing, the workouts that you're doing, what would you say the biggest differences are?
Between
the events, between the workouts.
Well, there's the tests, the 6 tests.
Right.
Name them off the top of your head and go. Aerobic capacity.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's get into these a few. So you guys did all these tests like for qualifying, right?
There were specific tests at nationals.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just go through those kind of.
Okay. Oh boy. On the spot.
If you miss one,
aerobic capacity. Mixed modal.
We'll be pissed.
Power.
Yes. Gymnastic.
Body weight
gymnastics. Skill.
Mm-hmm.
Better write these down.
Yeah. 4. Speed.
Phone a friend. That's the audience.
I got 4.
What? Gymnastics?
I missed one. Gymnastics.
Body weight. Yeah.
I don't know.
We failed the test.
Good enough.
Anyway.
Yeah. So what's the power test?
So for example, at nationals, the power test, I believe, was the max snatch, max thruster.
Yeah. Ooh, this is gonna be a memory test.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what.
What's the next one? Today. Aerobic. Ooh, that was the run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So aerobic, they're splitting up into 2 focus tests. One more cyclical, single modality. So it was a 3K run in shuttles, which is an interesting experience.
Yeah, that was different.
And then the mixed modal, that's what we're missing on this list. The mixed modal aerobic capacity test, which this year was double unders, kettlebell snatches, bike wall balls, and
that's impressive that you
like a chipper down and back. But that's just one example.
Yeah.
Bodyweight gymnastics was bar muscle up, pistols, L-sit, hold on plates, and
which was
handstand walk.
A great test.
I got sucked.
Some may
that
say.
Was my favorite.
The gaze crushed it. Yeah.
Body weight. Oh gosh, I don't remember.
Yes. Phone a friend.
Someone from our audience just help
Clutch.
us out.
It was a bodyweight endurance, bodyweight skill.
Oh,
Power, strength. Yeah, we didn't do too bad. We did okay.
yeah.
Anyway.
Did we say speed already? What was speed?
Well, speed isn't even on this list. That was the one we got wrong. So
We made that one.
power and strength. So the strength was the snatch and thruster. And then there was a power test, which was the row thrusters. The last event.
Gosh. Yeah, that was a memorable one. Yeah.
That was a beauty.
That was a
I
thruster
think I've seen
ladder.
some pictures from that one.
Yeah.
It was
Looked like a
carnage.
lot of
Bodies
fun.
on the floor.
Yeah.
Just feeling good the whole time.
So having these, and there's also different styles of competition that they're going to be running too, but these are the testable pieces that are involved in a medley style, individual and team medley, which is what Worlds essentially was.
Okay.
Multiple tests that cover these components of fitness over a weekend. So it allows recovery in between, strategy involved, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, that's always one of the most interesting things with a competition like this, or even like the CrossFit Games, is what people are actually doing in between events. Like, what are they doing with their body? What are they eating? Are they even sleeping? Because I wouldn't be able to sleep. Like, they hanging out with others? Are they having a beer? You know, it'd be fun just to be a fly on the wall and kind of follow around the top athletes and see what they do.
I think you would be surprised with what some of them are probably
maybe.
consuming, maybe.
Yeah.
Probably.
Eating. Yeah.
Whatever helps you stay relaxed, though, is probably one of the most important things.
I think that what you're talking about right there is a piece that needs education built in. And having a federation that has coaches that to pass specific courses in order to coach in their federation. Yeah. It's like sign up to be a minor hockey coach. You don't just get to sign up because your kid's on the team, then you get to coach, right? Yeah. I don't know how long the course is now, but there's an online component. There's a big binder of standards and drills and things like that they get handed once they become a coach. And then they follow through the tyke program, the Pee-wee, all the way up, Adam, all the way up. And they set their standard of who's making their team and how to progress through practices and things like that based on an actual book that tells them what to do. Yeah. That has to be there. And that's something that's going to come out of this federation too, is actual coaches education and standards for coaches as well that they need to stay within. And if your athletes aren't meeting specific things, then your job should be, I think it should be up for grabs. Yeah. Right? Because you're not doing what you're hired to do in that role. Right. So it puts a little bit more accountability.
Responsibility on that coach a lot.
So maybe at this point in time, they just don't have the kind of the selection of coaches right now, and so they can't have as many standards.
Oh, it's not even close to being there yet.
Yeah. Baby steps. Yeah. I don't think there's a standard set quite yet, so they need to figure that part out.
Yeah.
And build that, right? That'll take some time. That's not going to happen overnight.
Tell us about the difference between the first one that you went to last year in California and the one that we went to this year. Yeah.
There was a lot of different, there was a huge difference. The organization itself was leaps and bounds further along. The facility, we can just start there. Yeah. The facility was so much better this time than it was. So it was on a stage in an amphitheater in California. So that setting alone was very different than what any of the athletes had experienced before. The judging was much better this time around than it was the first time. They had to, so the judges were flown out to, I don't know if they were flown or they flew themselves out. Either way, they had to go for courses and they had to take courses and participate in the courses in order to actually judge this time. Whereas I don't believe that happened in California. So that in itself was a huge difference. The athletes were so much more advanced this year than they were last year. And it's amazing to think of what next year will look like with the athletes that will be participating. But for the most part, everything was a lot more cohesive and developed this year in comparison to last year was kind of just like, let's throw this out. Let's see how it goes. And it's a learning process.
So that was the first year.
It was the first ever. Yeah, the first ever. So I did individual last year, and then we did team this year. So even participating individual versus team was a very different experience. And watching the individuals this year, their tests were so different than the tests that we had to go through last year. Looking in on the individual ones, you couldn't pay me enough money to do what those guys were doing in individual. So
They're
much.
busy.
They were very busy. Yeah.
They did one of the team events just on their own, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yes, but yeah. So our team event, each individual athlete was responsible for a portion of the workout. The individuals were responsible for all of it on their own,
and it was
and then
double.
Some. Yeah.
Yeah. The time cap was an hour.
90 minutes. Was it
hour
90?
and a half? It was a long time.
It was a long time.
Took a whole dreams.
Day. Yeah. So huge changes, organization-wise, judging-wise, volunteer-wise, venue. Everything was so much further along, and I don't think the people who had gone to it for their first experience in 2018, not knowing what had happened in 2017, they can't really see the growth.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to acknowledge that they are putting in the work, and they are organizing things and definitely putting their hearts into making it that much better. And it's exciting to see what it'll be next year.
Yeah. It's all about perspective.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Not being at the first one. There's some things being at this one, I'm like, what is going on here? Right? Like, this has to be way better. And the only reason why I would even bring it up is because I know they know that it had to be better, and they know exactly what I'm talking about with some just some organization things and just more of that side of things than it was from a programming standpoint or anything like that. There's just some little things to fix, but not if I hadn't talked to you about your experience the year before, I would have seen a lot more problems with this year. But knowing where it came from and how quickly it got to where it's at now is like it was super impressive.
Yeah. And being open-minded about it too, right? We have to be so open-minded about the fact that this is the birth of a brand new sport, right? So we can't have these expectations that it's going to be like all the other sports that were established years and years and years ago. And be excited as athletes or people who are active in this community of growth. Be excited about the fact that it is growing, and we are very much a part of that growth. And giving our feedback, it may not always be positive, but that's helpful in the growth of the sport and the longevity of the sport over time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I definitely don't think they're looking for positive feedback either. It was more like every question I got from Gretchen or Michael or anybody was like, what can we do better? What can we do better? What can we do better? It wasn't like, how's it going? It was very specific to what do you think is not going well, so that we can work on fixing those things immediately, either this weekend or make it better for the following year, which shows a lot in terms of their mindset. It's growth oriented. They're focusing on growing it as fast as possible, and it's already exponential. Yeah, I think Norway has a whole bunch of clubs already established in their country. I've been trying to follow along on their Instagram, but the translations don't always come through very clearly. When you hit that C translation button, it doesn't really make sense all the time. Fluid. But so there's countries making big strides, and I think Canada can fall in that as well.
It would be cool to see what it does to some of the other sports too. Like for what CrossFit did to weightlifting, like apparently the numbers and registration and that have just gone like through the roof. So with this, might see the same thing with like gymnastics and a bunch of other related modalities, and even just people that would have kind of otherwise just been like your average, I guess you can call them like a gym junkie or whatever, like teenage kid just kind of goes to the gym, works out, likes the pump, likes the challenge and whatnot. You might see them kind of transition into this, and I think that'd only be good, only be beneficial, really.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. With where it's going, I think there's going to be a generation of kids that grow up and want to be functional fitness athletes, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
right. They're not growing up. Well, I want to be a gymnast. I want to be a hockey player. I want to be a soccer player. It's like, I'm going to be a functional fitness athlete. That's going to be sick.
Yeah,
it's all brand new. Yeah,
it's going to be pretty cool.
Well, we're already seeing it, right? With we look at Peyton, which is super exciting.
Oh my God, yeah. Kid's crazy. Kids like that is what I think about. Like if she had a stronger system to get her on the right path from even a younger age, where it could be. Like the sports, what we're doing now, I mean, we laugh about what they did in 2008, 2009 at the CrossFit Games. Like girls were getting their first muscle up to win. Yeah. And now like it's routine.
Let's just do 25 unbroken.
Yeah, it's crazy. So to think how far the sport's come in a completely chaotic environment, how far it can go when it's organized. Yeah. It's going to be pretty cool.
And the opportunity for so many kids, right? So many young kids who are looking to be active. There's huge opportunity for them now.
Yeah, so even like I'm just picturing it even at like college, university level, like it'd just be a whole new field. Kids could get scholarships too.
Totally. Varsity teams. Yeah.
That's cool.
That's where it's going.
Which is awesome. You think about it more than just like athletically, it's phenomenal, but that gives a lot of opportunity for kids to go to school and get an education, right? Like I think of myself, if I hadn't have gotten that scholarship to University of Houston, would I have gotten a university education? Maybe, maybe not. Like that was a huge opportunity for me. So to think that there's that potential for other kids to follow is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just opens up the door.
We're doing all right for time, eh?
We're doing great.
That's good.
We got all the time. Great. What do you got there? What do you got in your notes?
I got a few. So you mentioned some of the top athletes that were at like the first one versus this one, and like just through kind of like watching some videos, watching some pictures. I noticed a few names who were there, but so like Sam Briggs being one of them. So like it was probably a pretty cool experience just competing alongside athletes like that, I would imagine, and seeing kind of, again, back to what they're doing, like in between events, the work they're putting in, like actually away from that particular workout. So I'd like to hear what you guys think about that.
I think it's pretty neat to see those athletes taking part. I don't know. I have a couple different perspectives on it. We'll go into it. We'll see.
Yeah, we got time.
I think it's great that we're seeing high caliber athletes. I also think that it's great to see high caliber athletes that don't have CrossFit Games experience, right? Like this could be their big Olympics. To me, going to the Olympics is greater than going to the CrossFit Games, just because I'm more familiar with the Olympic Games than I am with the CrossFit Games. That's been like the goal since I was a little kid. So to see that this is opening up to a lot of other athletes who are not they could be aiming for the CrossFit Games, but that may not be their number one. This is an opportunity to go to the Olympics, right? And it has the potential to open that door for a lot of other athletes who may not be the Sam Briggs of the world. Yeah. And maybe Sam Briggs wants to participate. I don't know. I think there needs to be, and maybe we'll see later on down the road, in the amateur status, what does that mean in terms of, can an athlete be paid and still be a part of this process to qualify for an amateur sport?
That's a good point,
That there's some questions surrounding that. I don't know how you feel
that I never thought of. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Like same
NHL
thing.
Players aren't allowed to be in the Olympics now because they're professionals. Right. So it's like, where do you draw the line with elite level CrossFitters that are now being paid?
Yeah. It's not like they're not, it's like less than like 0.01% that are actually making probably a large enough income to actually sustain themselves, I would think. I don't know.
From the sport itself, I think you're right.
Like endorsements are another.
Yeah.
And endorsements are going to be fine because that's how amateur athletes survive.
Yeah.
Right. Is through.
And that's another conversation piece, right? Are these athletes who are training and dedicating their lives to becoming an Olympic caliber athlete, do they have the support needed financially to get to that point? Because they can't work full-time jobs, right? If you're seriously considering training to go to the Olympics, you can't be out there working 40 hours a week and doing it. There's people who do it, and that's phenomenal, but the way that sport is going, you can't balance both. So that's another conversation piece, I suppose.
Yeah. it's going to be interesting to see where the line is. Until it gets legitimized as well, until it gets recognition, it's going to be very difficult to convince the government for any funding.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not sure where they're at with that right now, but I definitely don't see the government just being like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
Could be a while.
it's tough because it's not recognized yet. It's very grassroots level. So we're going to rely a lot on, I mean, we're fortunate to have sponsors like Strike Movement, Tidex, Nova 3 Labs, Nova 3 Performance, helping out with things like equipment for nationals. Like all this stuff can cost a lot of money to do without sponsors donating things and sponsoring and, you know, financially and with equipment and products and uniforms and things like that. It's going to be pretty tough going here for the first little bit. Yeah. It's going to be very limited. A lot of personal fundraising will have to go on and part of the athlete itself take personal responsibility for funding their trips and things like that. But that's not saying it's not headed in the direction where the government will recognize and hopefully fund a little bit more. And then that'll hopefully go right down to a club level. But you don't see that in weightlifting right now. So I don't know. The Canadian government isn't as focused on sport as some other countries.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's a lot easier for.
So you mean in weightlifting right now, you don't see like funding support? So, yeah.
I don't know of any at all. I think it's all on the athlete themselves or on the club themselves to do fundraising within itself.
Yeah.
Which then is so limited. Like you think of all of those athletes who have so much talent and so much potential. Like that for me as a coach is like, just rip your heart out. If the kid doesn't have the financial backing, if their parents can't provide that money, if they can't provide that money, that's so much talent that's just gone by the wayside. They don't have that opportunity.
We only get it like once every 40 years when Canada hosts one of the Olympic Games, and then the government 8 years before that says, all right, just this one time we're going to fork out a bunch of money so that you kids can actually reach your potential, and then they just fuck off.
Yeah, totally.
It's sad. It's very sad. You see other countries though, and they have
they just
living in the States for 6 years was like, that was such an eye-opener. You look at even high school sports compared to our high school sports, like it's laughable, really. But their government values that, and they have so much money to provide for it. University sports even, obviously the schools are a lot bigger, and they make a lot of money off of university sports, so they have a lot more to give. But it's just the priority is there, where it's a little different in Canada.
Yeah. So we need a little bit of help there.
Yeah.
We lost the live feed.
I forgot we were on it.
No, we're still rolling.
Is there any questions on there? Should we take a peek?
People just joined it.
Oh. Joining and leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that gives us, I mean, I have a little bit of an understanding now about what the iF3 actually is. I didn't know a whole lot earlier. Are we actually allowed to talk about becoming a club, or is that top secret?
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Yeah? I'm just wondering, like, what are the requirements to be part of that? Like, what things are going to have to go into that? Like training for, we talked about training for coaches. We talked about funding. We talked about competing. Like, I'm just wondering how that'll actually look and what's going to go into that process.
So right now the process is I think it's imitating, again, like a weightlifting sort of club.
Okay.
Because the sports are, I think, similar enough that the process can be the same. It's a application form that you fill out. You give information on the space that you have available for training, the coaches that you have at that facility, and the qualifications that they currently have. Club name, got to pay your registration fee, and have a logo set up. You submit that stuff to Ian Bennett. He gets it to whoever needs to see it other than himself. And you can do it right through their website, the Canadian Functional Fitness Federation website. There's a button to click to apply or register your club. And then once that process is done, essentially there'll be an announcement if you get accepted in your club. Then members, similar to like a weightlifting club or a strongman club, since again they're similar sports, you pay a registration fee. It's fairly low. I think it's $20 right now per athlete. The club pays that, $100 a year to be a club, and you're in. That's where it has to start. Like, we need that to grow exponentially so that the top athletes in this country hear about this and are aware of what's going on, because if we can get higher caliber athletes competing and getting recognized on a level, like, do I think the countries were well represented this year? Sure. But were the best athletes from those countries there? No, not even close, for sure. So if you can get, like, England was probably
they were strong,
the strongest team in terms of experience from the athletes.
And maybe because they were the hosts.
100%. That's the reason.
Yeah.
100%. The awareness was there, right? These people heard about what was going on, and they showed up.
Mm-hmm.
So if we want Canada to be represented the same way that a country like England was represented, then that's what we need to do. We need to get the clubs started. I think it has to start from the federation, national federation and the international federation had to be established, but I think the local clubs are now like the next step in order to get things like provincials started. Because without clubs to represent at provincials, then provincials would never happen. And then we'd end up having the same sort of nationals that we had this year, where it was a registration based. You just signed up for it and everyone got to go to nationals. I think there needs to be more levels. And IOC will want to see more levels of qualification to be sure that we're filtering and keeping everyone to a standard before they go on to the next level.
Yeah, that just creates the consistency from the very beginning all the way up to World Championships.
Right.
It's established.
Right.
And it, like Jesse was saying, like, you need to do these little things one step at a time in order to get there. And that takes time. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, and it will for sure. I think, like, you can start. So let's pick a movement. This is something I was thinking about the other day. We'll pick pull-ups or something, right? Let's go with pull-ups. Yeah.
I feel like already this is a perfect example.
Pull-ups? Okay, so
I'm interested.
At a 5 and 6 year old level, does someone need to be able to do kipping chest to bar pull-ups? No. Should they? Probably not. Right? So what's a standard for a 4-year-old kid? I would say it's something like a dumbbell external rotation, right? Simple movement. We're looking for a percentage of body weight per hand, say. Right. If you hit that, then okay, let's go to working on like scat pull-up pluses and strict pull-ups, right? Strict chest to bar. Create a standard around that, whether it be 3 reps at whatever tempo you want, pick one, or 5 reps or 10 reps or 15 reps. Like, what do we need that person to be able to do before they move on to the next level? It's like swimming lessons, right?
You get your badges, you move on to the next one.
Exactly.
Yeah. You can't skip steps along the way.
Yeah. Can't just throw the kid in the deep end and say, figure it out.
What's going to happen?
That's frowned upon, right? But we're doing it right now. That's the unfortunate thing. It sounds ridiculous, but a lot of times a kid's introduction to CrossFit is exactly that. The coach is like, into the deep end, which is CrossFit group class. Let's call it that. Okay, and we're going to expose this 12-year-old kid who's not strong enough to do strict pull-ups, and coach says, I'll just kip him. Right? That can't happen. And that puts a responsibility on the coach, but without a set of standards, can you really blame the coach for their ignorance if there isn't a standard set? Like, I don't think we can.
No. Yeah.
I think it's unfair to that person to be like, oh, you're an idiot. You're doing this wrong. We can't say that because there's no real standard for them to hold themselves to. So just based on their own discretion, that's pretty loose.
That's scary.
Yeah.
So I want to play devil's advocate for a quick second here, just because I know some people probably thought of this when you said that, just based on last week. I know you'll have a rebuttal, and I have a pretty good idea of what it's going to be, and it's going to make sense. But so what about the people who we were just talking about, like kids doing pull-ups, kids jumping into a group class, the ones that say, well, Jesse, I thought you guys said last week CrossFit is not bad for kids. So can you just, I know what the answer is, but can you just comment on that? Because I think it's important that people hear it.
Yeah, the answer is that it isn't.
Yes.
There it is.
But there has to be a progression for that athlete or that child to go through in order to safely and effectively build up the strength in positions so that they can decrease their chance of injury and increase their performance. There has to be a balance there.
Right. Yeah, that's good. That's what I wanted to hear.
Mm-hmm. So an example of that would be, should a kid come in and start with back squats? Right? Maybe not. Right? Like what assessment was that kid put through in order to establish that they're ready to back squat their body weight?
Yeah.
Right? Was there an air squat assessment? Was there like a single leg assessment? Yeah. Was there a mobility assessment? Was there like a front loaded squat first, or like a goblet squat or something like that? That's going to be a little bit less intimidating, and then work their way into a back squat. Like that has to be there.
Yeah.
Just like any gym's on-ramp program really should have that too. Should have like start here and then we'll slowly start introducing things. The problem with an on-ramp is that the end goal of an on-ramp is to get somebody ready for a CrossFit group class in 4 weeks. That might not be enough time. And if it's not enough time, then hopefully your facility has coaches that are educated enough and comfortable and experienced enough to be able to direct this person so that they're safe, right?
Yeah.
Again, I think we can safely and confidently say that our facility has that, but I would not be confident in saying that CrossFit has that as a whole.
As a whole.
I wouldn't be comfortable saying strength and conditioning has that as a whole, right? I couldn't say like gymnastics. I couldn't say
no
anything like that. That's too big of a generalization. Yeah. But I think gymnastics would be closer. And the reason why I think gymnastics would be closer is because they have an established set of standards that a kid has to go through. Yeah. That's the difference.
Yeah. And all those coaches, like we talked about before, you have to go through all of your testing to become a coach, right? Yeah. And all those kids are doing the same thing. It's not like a kid in this club is doing something different from, if you're in a level 1, all those kids are doing the same movement standards. Then you go on to the next level. They're all doing the same movement standards. Yeah. That's not just within the standards, but within the coaching standards as well. All the coaches are teaching the same thing. Same with diving. Teaching the exact same thing and building that foundation first before we throw a kid on the 10-meter platform and tell them to go head first.
Yeah. Right?
Adios, amigo. Bon chance.
Yeah. It sounds hilarious and it's funny, but it's
the reality that is happening. Like that stuff happens.
Yeah.
And it happens in the CrossFit world too. So.
I think another side effect I could foresee happening from this is, I thought of this when you were talking about having like more criteria for assessment of movements, more criteria for actual progression through those movements. I could foresee. So when this field kind of grows, like this functional fitness grows, the awareness of like proper mechanics, proper movements is also going to grow. And then I think this could maybe influence other sports too, because you might see experts from this field kind of jumping into other arenas, even just to do like assessments on individuals in other sports. Like maybe you get a professional from this field jump into a summer hockey camp and say like, hey, like, can you come over for a day? I want you to assess all these kids' mechanics. What's the risk for injury? Like, are they moving the best possible way to like have the greatest speed on the ice, the best recovery, that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of benefit from that, as well as just having, like I said, like more of this criteria, more of this awareness, and people just learning about, I guess, proper mechanics really. I guess
it would be an actual level system too. It wouldn't be objective, I guess, or just bias, because it would be, can this kid do this, this, and this? Yes, can't do that. Okay, you're level 4.
Yeah.
And there's no argument there. That's just, that's it.
Yeah,
you're level 4.
Yeah, but
and then there's
just doesn't exist
a coaching book to go with that to be level 4. This person needs to be working on this, this, and this.
Pretty black and white.
And then it progresses. Yeah, it's too gray right now.
Yeah.
And this is going to make it very black and white.
Yeah, as it should be.
Yes. Yeah. I don't have any more questions right now, do you?
That's it. No, I think we're good.
How are we doing for time?
We're almost done.
Oh, that's pretty good, eh?
You guys have like a time limit?
Yeah. 60 minutes. I was wondering when you said that, what's the highest diving board you've ever jumped off before?
10 meter.
Is it?
Yeah, so it's 33 feet. Like a 3-story building.
That's
so high.
So when you guys make fun of me when I can't remember things, because I've landed on my head too many times.
Yeah.
It's like cement.
Coach Michael had a question for you.
Oh, God.
He wants to know if you've recovered from your thrusters.
No, Michael. I will never. Okay, so for the listeners that don't know what happened at World Championships, the worst pain I've ever existed in my I've ever felt
lay out
in
the
my
workout
life.
for us.
Oh God, can you remind me?
Yeah.
Again, I'm permanently concussed, so I can't remember a lot.
So the female side of it was 50 weighted double unders.
Yes.
And 20 thrusters at 95 pounds. 2 rounds.
2 rounds.
Yeah.
2 rounds.
Relay style.
No problem.
Yeah.
So we have a timer going, and they call, what do they call, 2 minutes remaining or something? I don't even know.
Yeah, they thought it was a 15-minute cap, and it was a 20-minute cap.
Oh.
Yes, 15-minute cap. Okay, yes. So the plan was that I would be athlete number 3.
Right.
I ended up going 4th, given our other female athlete, Charlie, so much faster than me, very a lot stronger than I was. So put your strongest athlete first, given there's a time cap of 15 minutes. So get her through it as quickly as possible. Yep. Perfect plan. So I go in at the end. Sweet. I'm going to have about 2 minutes. So I can go hard for 2 minutes. I'm going to get through these double unders. I'm going to get to the bar. Oh, wait, what? We still have 5 minutes remaining as I'm dead, thinking that I'm almost done the workout. I'm going to get cut off on time.
The timing was horrible.
It was awful.
So Lacey hops in there and everyone's screaming at her, go. So she flies through the rope. She gets the thrusters. She does 12 unbroken. We're like, yeah, go.
These are heavy thrusters.
Just going
ham.
So ham.
Think I'm
drops
gonna die.
The bar. 5 minutes remaining.
Oh my God. My life flashing. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? I went so this is where pacing, when we tell people it's so important to pace. Jesse wants you to go 80% for a reason. You should probably listen to the guy who knows what he's talking about. So I was balls to the walls. There's no such thing as pacing. This is ham sandwich. No, I hit a wall when that 5 minutes was announced. It was just sheer panic. I don't think I'm going to survive. And having my teammates yelling, die for me. I was like, I'm already dead.
Oh my God.
I don't think I could die anymore. So long story short, the workout's over. I'm laying on the floor for it had to have been a solid 10 minutes. I'm like, yep, I will never feel this amount of pain ever again. I cannot physically allow myself to go back to this place. So Mike, no, I'm friggin' traumatized forever.
Oh my God.
I hope that answers your question.
That was the best. Just the look on your face. Yeah. Oh my God.
And I think I was looking at, because Jesse is my coach. So I looked at Jesse and I was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Tell me what to do.
Yeah. McGay said one eye looking at me, one eye looking for me. I didn't know what was going on. Nobody was home.
I wanted to cry a little bit.
That was fun.
Next time I go watch a ball game or a hockey game or a soccer game or something, I just want to hear someone from the sidelines yell, "Die for me!"
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. That's a good throw.
That was intense.
It was amazing. Yeah. It was an experience.
That was fun.
On that note,
thanks for having me, friends.
Thanks for
Thanks
coming
for
on.
coming.
First
Awesome.
guest ever.
Yes.
Go down in history.
That's
I'll
right.
take it.
The first.
Yep.
Well, we'll come back.
Okay. Where can we find you?
Yeah.
Where can people listening find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Truelove Training, or Truelove Training on Facebook, or Lacey Truelove is my personal account on Facebook. That's where I'm at.
West London CrossFit.
West London
every
CrossFit.
day.
Yep, that's my home. Away from home. Spend more time at West London than I do at home. But I mean, it's a place to be. It's a great place, great community, great coaches, great environment. Love it.
Yeah, you said it. It's a lot of fun.
In order to find you, tell us again.
I'll tell you again. It's going to be in the show notes, but at brainignition_Chet, that's Instagram. That's probably the best spot. Hit me up there.
Cool.
Sometimes I wonder if I put that underscore in the right spot or not.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's confusing.
That's why we have to
throw
list
that
it
in there.
Yeah.
Mine's at Sheriff Academy. Instagram's pretty much it. I don't really do anything else.
Yeah, you guys know the drill.
Yeah.
Same thing as always, though. Give us your reviews, send us your feedback, let us know what you thought of this episode, and keep sending us your questions for future ones.
Yeah.
I think you probably heard some of the questions today we always get them from the viewers and use those. So we love hearing from you guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Peace.